Millions, maybe. That's my bet going in. We'll know in a minute, won't we? I'm not betting against you. Director Burns pushed a button on his console, and a male voice came over the speakers. The voice was heavily filtered.
Good evening. This is the Wolf.
The hair on the back of my neck rose immediately. I knew the Wolf. I'd chased him for nearly a year. In fact, I'd never known a more ruthless killer.
I'm the one responsible for the destruction of Sunrise Valley. I'd like to explain myself. At least as much as you deserve to know. Or should I say, as much as I want you to know at this time.
Monty looked over at me and shook her head. She knew the Wolf, too. The news couldn't have been worse if the call had come straight from hell.
It's good to be able to talk to all of you. So many self-important people gathered together just to listen to my ramblings. The FBI, CIA, Homeland Security. I'm so very impressed. Humbled, actually.
Do you want us to talk or listen? Burns asked.
Who am I speaking to? Who was that just now? Would you mind identifying yourself?
It's Director Burns, FBI. I'm with Director Weir of the CIA and Stephen Bowen of Homeland Security. There was a crackling sound over the speakers that might have been a laugh.
Well, I'm just so very honored again, Mr. Burns. I'd have thought you would assign a lackey to speak to me. At first, anyway. Someone like Dr. Cross. But you know, it's better that we talk top to top. That's always best, don't you think?
Weir from the CIA said, You specifically requested the first team in your earlier contact. Believe me, this is the first team. We're taking the bombing incident in Nevada seriously.
You've actually listened. I'm impressed. I've heard that about you, Mr. Weir. Although I foresee some possible problems between us in the future.
Why is that? Weir asked.
You're the CIA. Not to be trusted. Not for 1 minute. Don't you read your Graham Greene? Who else is on your first team? Stand up and be counted.
Burns went around the room listing who was present. He omitted a couple of agents, and I wondered why.
Excellent choices, for the most part.
The Wolf said once Burns had finished the roll call.
I'm sure you know who to trust and who not to, who you can depend on with your very lives. Personally, I'm not keen on the CIA, but that's just me. I find them to be liars and unnecessarily dangerous. Does anyone there disagree?
No one spoke, and the speakers crackled with the Wolf's laughter.
That's interesting, don't you think? Even the CIA doesn't disagree with my scathing indictment.
Suddenly, the Wolf's tone changed.
Now listen closely to what I have to tell you, you morons. That's the important thing now. You have to listen to me. Many lives can be saved if you do, and you must obey. Does everyone get that? Listen and obey. I want to hear you. Please speak up. Do all of you fucking understand?
Everyone spoke at once, and although it seemed absurd and childish, we understood that the Wolf was showing us he was in control. Total control. Burns suddenly spoke in a loud voice. He's gone. He hung up. He's off the line, the son of a bitch. Chapter 21. We waited like his puppets in the conference room, but the Russian mobster didn't make contact again. I knew the bastard well, and I didn't expect him to call us back. He was playing with us now. Eventually, I went back to my office, and Monty Donnelly headed to Virginia. I still hadn't been assigned to the case. Not officially, anyway. But the wolf had known I would be there in the crisis room. He'd singled me out for a gratuitous insult. Just his style. What was he up to? A mobster using terror tactics? Starting a war? If a small group of madmen in the desert could do it, why not the Russian mafia? All it seemed to take was a ruthless enough leader, and money. I waited and wondered if the terrible uncertainty I felt was part of the Russians' plan to increase the pressure and stress. To control us? Test our patience? And of course, I thought about Jeffrey Schaefer and how he might be connected. What was that all about? I'd already pulled up most of the recent data on Schaefer. We had put an old girlfriend of Schaefer's, his therapist, under surveillance. Her name was Elizabeth Cassidy, and I was trying to get a look at the notes from her therapy sessions with Schaefer. Later, I checked in at home and talked to Nana. She accused me of eating her cornbread, and I blamed it on Damon, which got a cackle out of her. "You have to take responsibility for your actions," she scolded. "Oh, I take full responsibility," I told her. "I ate the cornbread, and I'm glad. It was delicious." Shortly after I got off the phone, I was called down to a meeting in the crisis room. Tony Woods from the director's office addressed a room full of agents. "There have been new developments," he began in a solemn tone. "All hell is broken loose in Europe." Tony Woods paused, then went on. "There were 2 more terrible fire bombings about an hour ago. Both were in Western Europe. One bombing took place in the northern part of England, in Northumberland, near the border with Scotland. The village of Middleton Hall, population 400 plus, is no more." Woods paused. "This time, the townspeople were not evacuated. We don't know why. There were close to 100 casualties. It was a horrible bloodbath. Whole families died, men, women, and some children. We have already received a film segment from Scotland Yard. A local policeman took it from the Cheviots, which are a range of nearby hills. I'll put it on for you to see." We sat and watched the short film in total, stunned silence. At the end, the local policeman himself spoke to the camera. "My name is Robert Wilson, and I grew up here in Middleton Hall, which is gone. There was a single main street, a couple of pubs and shops, houses of people I knew. There used to be an old Royal Engineers bridge into town, but that was blown up. Our local pub, gone. As I stand here looking over this wasteland, I am reminded of why I am a Christian. What I feel most is hopelessness about our world." Following the moving tape, Tony Woods told us about the bombing that had taken place in Germany. He said he had no accompanying videotape as yet. The damage in Lübeck was not quite as horrifying, but it's bad. A group of college students apparently resisted. 11 of them were killed. Lübeck is in the Schleswig-Holstein region of Germany, near the border with Denmark. It's a farming area, secluded. The wolf has made no contact about the bombings, nor were we warned ahead of time. All we know is, it's escalating. Chapter 22. What next? And how soon would it happen? The tension during the next waiting period was excruciating. A madman was out there blowing up small towns and wouldn't tell us why, or if the attacks would continue and get worse. For the time being, I concentrated my attention on a close study of the psychopathic weasel, reading and rereading everything in his thick file. More than I wanted to, I could see his face, hear his voice. I wanted to bring him down. I went through notes from the psychiatrist who'd treated Schaefer when he'd lived in Washington. Not only had Dr. Elizabeth Cassidy been Schaefer's shrink, she'd been his lover. The notes were mind-boggling, to say the least, especially given the nature of their relationship and how it had developed, and also how wrong she'd been about Schaefer. As I read, I made notes on Dr. Cassidy's notes. First encounter. Unknown year-old male, self-referred with stated chief complaint, "I'm having trouble at work focusing on my projects." Stated that what he does is classified. Also described people at work telling him that he has been behaving strangely. Clients said that he is married, father of 3, twin girls and a boy. Stated that he is happy at home and with his wife. Impression. Well-dressed, very attractive, articulate male, somewhat restless and with considerable presence. Somewhat grandiose in describing his past accomplishments. Rule out schizoaffective disorder, delusional disorder, substance-induced mood disorder, primarily alcohol or recreational drugs, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, borderline personality disorder, unipolar depression. Interview 3. 10 minutes late for appointment today. Irritable when questioned about this. Stated that he felt spectacular and yet seemed ill at ease and anxious in session. Interview 6. When questioned about home life, an earlier discussion of problems with sexual functioning became somewhat inappropriate, chuckling, pacing, making sexually explicit jokes, and asking about my personal life. Stated that when he and his wife are together, he engages in fantasies about me and that this causes him to ejaculate prematurely. Interview 9. Quiet today, almost with flattened effect, but denied any depression. Felt that people around him don't understand me. Continued to describe sexual problems with wife. Stated that he had an episode of impotence last week with her, despite fantasizing about me. The sexual fantasies were very detailed, and he refused to curtail them when asked. Admitted to being obsessed with me. Interview 11. Marked change in affect today. Very energetic, euphoric, and almost overwhelmingly charismatic. Possibility of sociopathic disorder. Questioned the need for further sessions and stated, "I feel terrific." When questioned about issues with his wife, stated, "Things couldn't be better. She adores me, you know." Discussed an episode of risky behavior this past week involving driving his car very fast and intentionally leading police on a high-speed chase. Alluded to participating in sexual behavior with another partner, possibly a prostitute, and spoke of rough sex. Manner of relating today was flirtatious, almost openly seductive. He is convinced that I want him. Interview 14. Missed last appointment. No call. Apologetic today, but later became angry and restless. Stated that he felt the need to reward himself. Discussed increase in libido again, mentioned calling several high-priced escort services to engage in sexual activity, and discussed desire to engage in sadomasochistic behavior. Said that he is probably in love with me. No effect when he revealed this to me. None whatsoever. I must say, I am a little speechless. Colonel Schaefer seems to be attending these sessions almost solely for the purpose of seducing me. And unfortunately, it's working. Chapter 23. After reading Dr. Cassidy's notes, I have to admit, I was a little speechless too. More than a little, actually. The strange case notes began to side with Schaefer after the 16th visit. They no longer contained any of his personal feelings that must have led to the affair. Then Dr. Cassidy stopped making notes on the sessions altogether. How incredibly odd, not to mention unprofessional. I assumed that their affair had begun by then. If I needed any more proof of what a clever and highly disturbed psychopath Schaefer was, I had it in Dr. Cassidy's notes. Late that night, I got